Welcome, movie fans. Here's Dimitri Panos for Popcorn Talks, Anatomy of a Movie, where today we hope to inspire you one block at a time. Of course, I'm talking about Brittany Runs a Marathon. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
Hey, movie fans. Dimitri Panos, Popcorn Talks, Anatomy of a Movie, where today we're going to dissect Brittany Runs a Marathon. And wow, I have a cavalcade of amazing hosts today. It capped off by someone who I'm very proud and honored to call my friend. And she's an amazing voice and has a great opinion. The amazing Kit Bowen.
Yay! Thank you. Yes, that's very
Thank you for
sweet,
coming back, for being
Of
you.
course.
She's like a semi-regular co-host with me here on Anatomy of a Movie. I appreciate you
any
coming
chance
back.
to talk about movies? I mean,
And this is a good one.
Yes.
This is a really solid movie. So, ladies and gentlemen, since we are talking about the movie Anatomy of a Movie, for you folks new, thank you, welcome. But also know we're very spoilerific. We're going to talk about plot points of this movie. And yes, it is a book. It is adapted from the book, but not necessarily assuming that people have read it. So if you haven't seen the movie, by all means, just put us on pause, go see the movie, come back, tune us in. Or some people have even said they watch the show and they become inspired to go see a movie. So you can do that too, but just know when you're running to the theater, you're going to pretty much know everything that happens in the movie.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Anyways, so...
is it based on a book?
I believe so. I believe it's the actual Brittany wrote.
Oh,
this
she wrote a
story.
book. Okay,
Yeah.
I know that the director, whose name is Paul Downs...
Corazio. Yes.
He was her roommate.
Yeah, they were best friends.
Yeah,
but we'll get into that fun history because it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And as we open up all Anatomy of Movies, we start off with our opinion, our little review of the movie. So, Kit, take us away.
I love this movie. I think that as a self-discovery movie, and look, it's not anything really new. I mean, you've seen this kind of a story before where, a person finds themselves in some sort of fashion. And in this fashion, it's this, New Yorker who has kind of lived a sort of slacker life and she doesn't really have a lot of direction. And, her self-esteem isn't all cracked up to be, but she feels like she's found her little niche, maybe, is that she's the party girl. She's kind of as she puts it, the fat sidekick friend. And, she's okay with that. But when she goes to a doctor to get a checkup, he says, you're going to have to lose some weight. And, she at first is balks at that idea, which, of course, any doctor tells you that. I usually go, yeah, okay, right, I'll start working. But she does actually decide that she's going to try to do something. So she runs a block.
Right.
And she's like, okay, if I can do this, maybe I can continue doing this. And then she gets the idea that she's going to have this big goal to reach, which is to run the New York Marathon. Jillian Bell, here's the thing. Like I said, it's not new, but Jillian Bell makes it.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
And that's the key to a movie like this. It's your star, and it's all her. And I've loved her from some of all the comedies that she does. She comes from an improv background. She was in the Groundlings here in L.A. She's the comic timing is like this,
right.
Of course. But this whole sort of dramatic side to her that we hadn't had a chance to see,
right.
She completely handles that. And then her supporting cast is also amazing. Right. Michaela Watkins, Micah Stoke, I think it's the guy who plays the gay guy who runs a block with her at first, and then Itkarsh Mbakar, I think it plays the love interest for her, and all the characters. Again, it's the ensemble situation that makes this movie key. And the thing about Jillian, which brings it over the top, is that she's so genuine in this.
Yeah, first I really did like this movie a lot. And in major part because of Jillian Bell. I really think that this is this could be a career changer for her. Up to this point, all we've seen her in are these comedies, which she's great in. But this one, you come out going, that woman can act. She's got the chops. Like, this is like the star breakthrough kind of role. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, the character Brittany in the movie is really not likable.
No. She's frustrating.
She's extraordinarily self-destructive. Mm-hmm. And she takes that, and when she takes that self-destructiveness on everybody else around her gets hit by shrapnel. Yeah. Because of her. Because of this. And you're right. We've seen these, I'm not happy with myself. What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. But this one was done in, I think, a fairly, in a different way. And to Gillian's credit, she has this arc. Yeah. And, I mean, there's one scene in the movie. It's like a picnic scene, a birthday scene that I almost was over the edge to hating this character so much. But to the screenplay, but even more to Gillian Bell's credit, you're able to, if you stick with it, like, you like her. Mm-hmm. And when she begins to like herself more, and then the people around her, and then she affects people in a much different way. Yeah. That, to me, is the brilliance of this movie, because we do see a clear arc. So even though we may have seen these self-discovery kind of movies, I got to do better for myself, this really is a great example of women empowerment and taking that power. And I think it's a really wonderful female character and a female role that we've had. This summer has been rich with some really good female roles. Brittany Runs a Marathon is a great example of what movies have to offer for audiences. Right. And if you are part of the Me Too movement, and this movie, you should support it, because we've got great talent involved. Yeah. And they do a really fantastic job. I walked out. Look, I'm never going to run a marathon. Hell, I don't even run to catch the tram at Disney. Okay, so that ain't gonna happen. But
he's telling the truth.
Yeah, right? I am telling the truth. Well, just look at me. People.
No, I'm just talking about the Disney thing. He goes a lot.
I do go a lot. Sometimes I'll walk to the parks in the parking garage. It's true. People tell me to get in shape all the time, and I said, but I am in shape. I'm round. So you walk out. You do feel somewhat inspired. You feel taken by the character, because she does arc nicely, and every emotional beat and arc is earned very nicely. Yeah. And that, to me, is all because of you, Gillian Bell. Yeah. She believes in it. You believe her. She's fantastic. I think it's a great turn for her career, and I look at her not just for a comedic actress, but she's an actress, full-fledged. She's fantastic.
I mean, certainly, Trainwreck, Amy Schumer's film, there's some DNA, sort of tied into this a little bit. But, and, I think people who see the poster, it is sort of, more comedic in
absolutely
in its, presentation. But it really is very much of a dramedy in the way that, you do get to know this person. And she's frustrating. You want to slap her. The scene you were talking about in question, it's a spoiler, she is at a family event, and she has too much to drink. And this couple shows up, and the woman is overweight, and the man is, regular size. And she's looking at this, after having, some setbacks. She's looking at this couple thinking, what does he see in her? Right. And that's how she's projecting, clearly. I did read an interview with Gillian, who said that one particular scene was the most important scene for her, because of its nature. And she sat down with the actress who played the other actress. She sat down with her, and they went over it, and they both decided that this would be the only time they'd ever do a scene like this.
Right.
And I feel that's very telling. And look, this movie isn't about losing weight.
It's not. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Because I've had conversations. In fact, with our engineer, hey, Ryan. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, how you
Ryan's
doing? Good to see you.
our engineer. It's great to have you on board and doing our zeros and ones for us.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I had this. I overheard the conversation earlier today where Ryan said just that. If it's another actor's got to lose weight movie, it's not about that. It really isn't. It is self-discovery and being just a better person, regardless of your shape. You have to really love yourself, and it just happens to be that running was this character's cathartic go-to.
Yeah, but then she becomes even more obsessive with that, you know.
Right.
And it's not the be-all end-all cure to herself, to her loving herself. It's
right.
not.
No.
It isn't. And it's something that I think, every person has their own sort of situation where they might find one thing that helps them
Right.
get to that spot.
Agreed.
And that's what this is about. And
Yeah.
of course, I was bawling at the end of this movie.
Were you?
Yeah, I was just moved by it.
Yeah.
She's running in the marathon and she's, it's struggling. And I'm like, oh, I feel it, I feel it.
Yeah, and from what I understand, I have a couple of friends who've run the Los Angeles Marathon, and every year all I hear is, "That's the most grueling thing I ever want to do." Like, and then they go ahead and do it again. So what? I don't want to hear you just complain to me like you're dead. It's the most grueling, painful thing, and then you're doing it again. Oh, good for you. But I mean, I understand because I have friends who do it, and they continue to put themselves through the torture. But I have heard that running a marathon is one of the most grueling, painful things that a human can attempt to do.
Right.
So
because you've got the people who are doing it to win it, so
Right.
you've got your Olympic, long distance runner
Sure.
type people, but then you've got masses of people who are just doing it to prove something, I
right,
guess, to
because it's there to do it, to do the
to
accomplishment.
say I did it and I finished and I, not in my DNA to do that.
Yeah, it's not in my DNA too. But again, I think if you can come out of a movie thinking about ways, just be inspired. I mean, I can't think of another word other than inspired, so forgive me for using the word often, but if you come away thinking about yourself in a way, if the movie touched you in a way, and listen, the movie is entertaining.
Yes.
As rough as that picnic scene, that outdoor scene is, there are other scenes that are actually quite funny.
Yes.
To Jillian Bell's credit and the cast.
My favorite's she goes, "Why do you keep calling me Brittany?
Yeah.
My name is Babe, and I'm lost in the city. I'm looking for my farm."
That's right. That was awesome.
I'm like, that's Jillian Bell right
That's
there.
great. And, one of my favorite scenes was a scene that took place in the subway where she runs into her former roommate her former roommate was, a very narcissistic
Yeah, it was a
social
toxic.
media.
Yeah.
It was a toxic thing, but again, another nice arc in the movie for the Brittany character. And it was played out very, very well. So you had mentioned Paul Downs Colazzo. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly because I'm about to shower you with some praise.
We'll just call him Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
Good to call you Paul.
We're like this.
I'm only doing it because she told me to. He makes his directorial debut with this, which is pretty amazing, being that he was a writer-director, but he wrote plays.
Yeah, he's a playwright.
He's a playwright. And so he, too, had to go through a training process. And I have to sit corrected. If I say something wrong, I will admit it on the air. So, no, it wasn't a book, but he used his friend very much, basing Brittany, like her experience. This is who...
He went
This is
through
who
it with
inspired him and saying, wow, this is a great idea for a story. And she kind of laughed it off as it being like, are you kidding me? Brittany O'Neill. So, and she's like, I never expected a screenplay to come up with me. So, I just find that's great that they were friends. And again, it's one of those happy coincidences that because of it, we get this movie.
Yeah.
This really nice, inspiring movie. So,
yeah, and I think he has been asked, did you have Jillian Bell in mind when you were He goes, no, I mean, no. She came on board 7 months before we started filming this, you
Yeah.
know, but it was something that spoke to her, you
Yeah.
know, on a personal level.
Right.
I mean, it's literally going to touch, you know, any woman that I know of, there's going to be, or men really, but you know, I'm coming from the female perspective.
Yeah.
It's going to recognize themselves, you know, in
Sure.
this, because everyone wants to better their lives or better their self-esteem. It's, you know, the world is tough.
And thank you for bringing that up. It's, you know, and I really appreciate that, because I think when a movie works, whether it's a female character, it should appeal and resound with everybody. Should have a mass appeal. And I think this movie does that. Yes, it could speak to women, but it could speak to men too, if you're paying attention to the cues. You know, I mean, seriously, you don't have to be a woman to appreciate how one can change their lives, or should they, or even question. And all the while not be beat over the head with it. The movie doesn't come off as medicine.
No.
It comes off as being very entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great date night movie.
Yeah.
Number one. I really do think so. So, but you're right. I guess, you know, and that's why I'm glad to have you here. When I asked you, I give you a choice. Hey, blinded by the light. You're like, Brittany, like you didn't even like think about it. And I'm like, that's great, because I wanted your perspective. And as I said at the top of the show, you have a very unique voice and a great voice for this. So I know you're a great help. You know, so Paul drew on very personal experiences for his debut film, and it's a love letter to Brittany O'Neill, which, you know, knowing all this, you get it. And what I love about this is that it also doesn't pull punches at all. I mean, again, the Brittany character in the movie is not the most likable character in the world.
No.
And if you're calling this a love letter, he puts in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I respect it, because there isn't anything that's sugar-coated in this movie. It's
And
not
also, it's
saccharine.
very... Again, it's just one of those movies where diversity, you know, sexual orientation, everything is just there. It's like
Right.
there's not a particular reason why or whatnot. It's just that's who those characters are,
Yeah.
you know. So the like I said, the guy that ends up running with her at first, you know, they're both very out of shape, and he's kind of an in shape guy. You know, he wasn't
Sure.
necessarily overweight in the movie, but. You know, he doesn't run, and he's married to a man and they have a small child who like basically said, "Dad, you know, you can't do this, or you can't run after me." I've forgotten the exact reason, but
Right.
that was his
Yes,
motivation.
that was his motivation.
And then Michaela Watkins, who I love her. I think she's
great.
sort of underrated in a lot of ways, and
I
her
agree.
character as well has a little arc, or has a little, you know, background to it. She's going through a painful divorce and custody battle, and you know, and Jillian, you know, Brittany thinks of her as being like this perfect rich woman, and clearly she's not.
No.
So, and again, like you said, I liked what you said about it doesn't hit you over the head with these things.
No.
Though. It's just life.
No, it is. And I want to talk a little bit about Catherine, because she's a great character as well. And again, when you realize what's going on in her life, there are scenes where you go, Brittany, you got to lay off this woman for a bit, because she is trying to help. That's the other thing with everything going on in her life, Catherine's life. She's still trying to help Brittany.
Yeah.
And at the end, like I wanted more of this like friendship, because I found that there was this bond, and that Brittany's epiphany is I can be a better person. Catherine knew this all along, and there was a really great dialogue between the two of them about the divorce, who's going to get the kids. That really helped solidify this movie, because again, it's not about running. It's not just about losing weight. It's about really, in a sense too, compassion. And through that compassion, you can inspire somebody. I really found that to be a very nice key. And that was exemplified by this Catherine character.
Yeah.
A lot.
And then, of course, the other character I really loved was Jara, I think, Brittany's love interest, played by Ikarsh.
Is it?
Bakar.
It's J-E-R-N.
Jaren.
Jaren.
Also, you know, when she meets him, they're supposedly watching this dog in this really fancy townhouse, and they end up just moving into this townhouse
Right.
because the people are never there, and he's also a slacker.
Yeah.
It has no sort of real direction in life, and to be honest with you, this made me think not so much about myself, but for my kids. It did.
How so?
Well, just that, they are now entering into their 20s or their mid-20s, and they are searching for what they want to do in life.
Right.
And I feel like this movie points out the fact that you don't have to have your shit together
No.
right off the bat. You don't, you just don't. It's an evolving process.
Yeah.
I remember it being that way for me even, but still, but for my kids, I felt like better about the fact that they really are kind of trying to find their way right now, and I think I'm hoping that they'll get to a place where they are finding their
and that to me is the magic of movies. It's
true.
Truly, because this is why we all love movies so much, because we did Blinded by the Light a little bit earlier today, and we talked about how
another good sort of follow your dream type
follow
movie.
your dreams, great coming of age story, and the power that music has, right? Mm-hmm. And how you can relate music to life choices. Movies can be the same way. Movies can make you think or reminisce about certain things, or make you think about life choices as well. But it's the ones that most entertain you, that you think about well after you've left the theater.
Yes.
And you can think about the character, but ultimately you were entertained for 2 hours. And if a movie can come away like you just had, that it was a wonderful analogy, but bringing up your family and using characters in a movie that you relate to in life, and again, much like music, you can relate to in life. You see it happening. This is the magic and power of really good storytelling and good movies.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this summer, I don't think we've had a lot. There've been some. People gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah, I just talked about this last night. Yeah,
you gotta.
It's our job to tell you to go see these smaller movies.
We'll tell you. We could say bad movies, good movies. Yes, I'm not opposed to franchise pictures, but I'm going to give an honest opinion. If I didn't like it, I didn't like it. But this summer has been really weird, where the smaller movie, like Brittany, runs a marathon. Like where last year documentaries in the indies were flourishing in the summer. This time, I don't know why people just aren't going when they should. Brittany Runs a Marathon is a great example of this. We're not the only ones who thought that this would make a good movie.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, of all people, was a producer of this movie. Yeah. Kudos to him. So I just think that, and how this all came about, so as Brittany's story was still unfolding in real life, actor and producer Tobey Maguire dropped in a performance of one of Paul's plays in New York. Okay, so, and impressed by what he saw, catch this, he invited the playwright to meet with him and his producing partner, Matthew Plouffe, to discuss possible future film projects. So we talked about, Paul goes, and we talked about what he wanted to do next, Mr. Maguire says, and he mentioned a couple of ideas he was pursuing, and one of them was this Brittany Runs a Marathon. We knew he hadn't written it. He hadn't written a film script before, but his plays were so strong that we offered him the deal to write a screenplay. Wow. So that to me that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's a great story, and kudos to Tobey Maguire and to his producing partner, Matthew. I think that it's an inspiring story.
Yeah.
That they could recognize talent. They saw it at a play, and it's like, hey, I want to talk to you. I like your voice. I like what you have to say. So what do you got going on?
Yeah.
And then Brittany ignites that spark.
Yeah.
So
he also wrote for CBS too. I think he had a pilot on CBS and had to deal with them for a little bit of time. Worked on the MacGyver reboot, I think.
Right.
But
Yeah,
Clearly, the guy's Paul. I'm talking about
Paul.
is a very talented writer.
absolutely. And McGuire thought so.
Yeah.
And he's an articulate blend of, and this describes Brittany runs a marathon, humor, truth, and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And McGuire goes on to say, just listening to him recount his day is so enjoyable. So, again, I say kudos to Mr. McGuire for nurturing this talent because, number one, I really do think you catapult Jillian Bell's career.
Right.
People who watch it, and you're going to help catapult this guy's
Yes.
career as a feature film writer and director. And it doesn't mean that he has to give up writing plays.
No, of course not.
Right?
No.
So, yeah. And
when you're right, you write,
right, you're right. And when you're right,
And when
you're
you're
right.
right.
And you're never wrong.
Well, here's the thing about good writing too, and it's look, the business itself is always tough, and I'm sure Jillian and Paul would both attest to that situation. But you keep at something, and if you're good, you probably will get noticed. And
Right.
Jillian, look, she's put in her licks too. I mean, she's done
Right.
a lot of those sidekick characters, and she's been hilarious in a lot of movies. But here it is. Here's a script. She saw it. She went, yeah, I want this. I
Yeah.
really want this. I want to do this. I want to show people. And I think like Amy Schumer and those kinds of people too. It's Melissa McCarthy, all of them. It's like they start out as a comedian, but a lot of them do have chops. Robin Williams I always think of Robin Williams when I think about that because he studied at Juilliard and
Sure.
he started in comedies, but then all of a sudden we were like, oh, wait a minute, Robin Williams can really, really act. And of course that's always the case, but you get pigeonholed. So
You
this
do.
kind of stuff is always great to see because then you give someone who has a lot of talent a chance to shine.
And it's a fresh face, too. And it gives a Jillian Bell like that opportunity. And that's why she shines. Now, Paul did propose because they were talking about who to get to direct for this. And Paul said, well, I could do it. And he goes on, they very reasonably said no. Given that I never directed anything before. But
Fair.
I've been through enough projects to know that great character-driven stories can get lost in translation if no one is there to protect them. So he didn't give up. He carefully crafted a lookbook. So see, there was a book involved. I knew that. I gotta take whatever little I can. So he crafted a lookbook and a presentation of his vision for the film. So he took it to L.A., tried to win over the producers, and he succeeded. He did a lot of great work to convince us he could bring the character to life better than anyone, says Plouffe. So that to me is another test. And again, this is his marathon. Like, you don't have to be running a marathon. And this is why I think the movie thematically is universal. You don't have to run a marathon. You just can. You can think of yourself. This is my change. I'm going to go from screenplay or from writing plays
Right.
to doing this, and I know that I can do it. And he convinced the people of this, and he did a really very, very solid job in creating this. So
Usually
kudos
I
to him.
find that that's always the case. When a writer-director is truly passionate about, they're always going to do a good job. And this came from and also when it comes from a place of real, genuine feelings
Right.
and genuine relationships.
Right.
Real ones.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, and Belle, she too, the passion for the project, it matched Paul's passion. And she goes on, she says, like, it took over her life. Paul and I talked daily about dialogue and the characters' motivations. So, and he would go through scenes line by line. And that to me is great. And the actual O'Neill, the Brittany O'Neill says she felt bonded to Belle watching her performance. I felt like she genuinely experienced all the emotions that she had.
And she lost weight
And she lost weight.
doing it.
Yeah. And she's still able to maintain comedic chops. But for me, I was most impressed because she carried the drama, the dramatic beats so well. And again, you mentioned some great actors. Robin Williams, when we miss him very well. But when sometimes it took Bill Murray a very long time. He tried. The Razor's Edge did just not work for him. And he tried, but he eventually got to that place. Robin Williams got to that place rather somewhat quickly. Melissa McCarthy has proven to everybody that she can be dramatic.
But you know that they always throw in a bit of who they are comedically as well.
Right. Of course.
Like Lost in Translation for Bill Murray, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
but that's
it's like people kind of still want to see them be funny for a second, even if they aren't being funny for a second. That's why Jim Carrey sometimes failed in some of his because he tried too hard to mask the stuff that made him funny.
But you could look at World According to Garp for Robin Williams, and then you look at him too as Adrian Cronauer in Good Morning Vietnam. A lot of people do look at that as a comedy, but there are scenes in that movie that are not comedic.
No.
And he carries it off. And then of course the Dead Poets Society and such. So
and Good Will Hunting.
And Goodwill, right. And you know, when you look at it, Jillian Bell, this was the first time that I saw her in this light. And again, I mean no disrespect to like Amy Schumer, but she hasn't had that yet.
Not quite yet.
As much as I enjoyed Trainwreck. But to me,
I wanted to ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
Just speaking of Amy Schumer, she had a movie, I believe, last year that took place in New York.
Yep.
I'm blanking on the name of it.
I Feel Pretty.
I Feel Pretty.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like maybe a more mature version of that film.
No.
One that's not. Does that sound bad?
No.
Because I Feel Pretty. The concept, but it was. Yeah, she gets hit on the head.
She gets hit on the head.
Oh, no, I saw I Feel Pretty. I just remember the film's about, gaining self-confidence, but I just thought like she had to have, in that movie, she had to have something crazy happen, like an injury to her head.
Right.
But in this one, I feel like it's a more mature plot line. Am I on the right track?
It's more self-introspective too. I think Brittany is that she realizes her doctor, or she realizes her life, and she doesn't get a knock on the head. She just says, what if I just try running a block?
Yeah.
Let me try this.
So this one's real.
Yeah.
I Feel Pretty was a bit, kind of out in the...
And its messages ended up being mixed, I felt, in that movie. Where this one, there's really no mixed message. It really does become inspiring, but they never shy away from Brittany's self-destructive behavior, because running becomes her drug. But so much so that the things that she loves, that she's so compulsive to do, ends up hurting her.
Yeah.
And then she becomes upset at that. So it's about taming, in this case, her self-destructive behavior and learning to accept herself, but to love herself more. But it wasn't just because of her shape. It was just being a better person.
Yeah.
So we all can be a better person,
right,
regardless of what hobby or whatever we do to take. And that's where Brittany, I think, really comes home and drives a wonderful point home.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not. Yeah, again, it's not about losing weight in this movie, like we said, but it also, that is a part of it. And in reality, she has never, as a character, Brittany has never experienced the sort of, like her roommate who's cute and slim and has all these boys and blah blah blah. She's never had that. She's never had that kind of attention, I should say. And so that's definitely dealt with in the film. It's like she starts to lose weight, she starts to get more attention from people. It's just, it's kind of a sad situation as far as social norms are, but that's sort of the reality of it. And it didn't shy away from that at all either.
No, not at all. And it really was about proving one to themselves, about like the running the marathon. Again, it was a goal. It wasn't just to lose weight, but it's like, can I do this?
Yes.
Can I? And the way that the screenplay is set up as well is when she hurts herself, she can't run with her friends. Right. So at the end of the day, she somewhat runs alone. She has herself to rely on. Her friends help her out with the training, but you kind of feel bad for her when she can't be with what she worked so hard for. But it didn't mean that she gave it up.
Relapse, so to speak. But it's, and look, we were talking about indie movies and whatnot, and you would call this a slice of life movie. Now, I have a few friends who hate slice of life movies. That's not why they go to a movie. They go to a movie to be either laugh their butts off or,
you want to be entertained.
escape, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's always been the struggle for indie films because, a lot of the ones that have come out this summer are a little bit more like the slice of life, like character studies. They're about family. They're, like The Farewell or they have some intrigue
or
like
late
Loose.
night or late night,
even, yeah.
Where did you go,
Booksmart was an
right.
over-the-top kind of comedy, but also grounded. But yeah, so it's always been a problem for indie films because, people want to go just see the action stuff. But
today, I would say if this movie was, I think if this movie was released in the 80s or 90s, or maybe even the early 2000s, it would have a different.
Maybe
people were people are being inundated so much, and again, everybody's. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Forgive me. Many people's attention span is that of a gnat. So see something, it's forgotten. See something, it's forgotten. And they don't want to take the time. This movie I find to be one of the more entertaining movies of the summer that I've seen. And I just want people to see it. So something a little bit else in the production that I really want to talk about is that the film is set almost entirely in New York City, which doesn't happen often because of production budgets and whatnot. Canada's used a lot for the Big Apple. But what I didn't know, too, is that this was the very first movie to ever be part of the New York City Marathon.
That's pretty
wild.
Which
is crazy to me. I mean, we've seen movies that have talked about it, but it's the first feature film ever to be shot during the iconic New York City Marathon, which is pretty crazy. And apparently the city of New York was all in. They gave some great support. You take a ride in the subway, everybody's smiling, wishing each other luck. I mean, that to me is synergistic. And another reason why I think this movie works, because I think thematically it's synergistic. I think thematically it's not only, I think it's entertaining, but you can take away with it what you want to, and that's what makes this movie work. And this is why, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. Because, again, if you just don't you want to come out of a movie feeling good? Like, seriously.
Inspired.
Again, there's that word again.
I can't
think of another word, but don't you just want to feel good? So, I mean, what is wrong with that? This movie will do it. You'll laugh. You'll tear up. You might think of your own self. You might think of somebody else, but go see it on a date. That's why I think that this... I think it's grounded, and there's nothing wrong with being grounded. Everything can't be a franchise.
Yeah,
And
Jillian Bell, like I said, I mean, she's Workaholics is a show I never actually watched, but I know she was a regular on that show, and she actually wrote for Saturday Night Live. Did you know that? Yeah. So I mean, like you said, she's been entertaining me for a while now, but I'm happy to see her do this, and I hope she can move. I have a feeling she's going to move into the writing, directing avenue.
I'd like to see her in more roles, not even necessarily like Brittany, but she can be a great romantic comedy lead.
Yeah.
Because she can do it both.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? She could handle physical comedy. Obviously, she can be sarcastic. But now that I see her, she can handle the dramatic. So I want to see her in more of those roles. I want her to, she's a wonderful actress. She's proven itself. And now I look at her at a completely new light, and I appreciate her more for it. So, I think we've run out of topics to discuss.
Yeah. I think
Brittany runs.
So run to the theater.
Yeah. Thank you. Room shot, please. So, please, Kit, again, thank you so much. We got other movies coming up that I'd love for you to be part of our discussion, the discussion on anatomy.
I shall return.
Well, how can people find you? Yeah,
Twitter,
on the Twitters.
Or the twits. At The Movie Kit is my Twitter. And I'm also editor and film critic for Screen Picks. So you can find my podcast on Screen Picks as well.
Thank you very much. I've never been invited to Screen Picks. Never. Just
the podcast?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying.
I might be able to hook you up.
Do you know anybody? In any case, well, I love being here for Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie. A very special thanks to Ryan. If you want to know what the kid looks like, he helped me out on Blinded by the Light. He is the Popcorn Talk Network's authoritarian on Bruce Springsteen. So you'll love his viewpoints, especially if you're a Bruce fan. So thank you for handling the engineering. I, again, am Dimitri Panos. You can find me on the Twitters at Dimitri Panos. It's that simple, at Dimitri Panos. I appreciate your support. If you like the show, please tell other people. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Love to see your comments on the YouTubes. Until our next movie, I will see you at the movies. Take care. So long.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.